Chapter 3. A Beautiful Smile. From the perspective of Jacques in the year 1774. Quote by Marcus Tullius Cicero. Love is the attempt to form friendship inspired by beauty. It was fall, and I was in Cognac's auction houses bartering a bumper crock of Ogni Blanc grapes. As was planned, I met with a close friend and old military comrade, Richard Hennessy. Those 30 crates of grapes for 4 cases of your best cognac, agreed? I extended my hand to Richard, expecting him to grab it. I caught a twinkle in his eye as he pulled away. Not so fast. First, have a sample of what you've bargained for. My best. It's 90 proof. I think you'll love it. A half-filled snifter of golden brown cognac was pushed into my hand, and I sipped it. Warm, woody, mildly sweet with the subtle scent of peaches, it was perfect. Ah, yes, that's fine cognac. It is, but we close our deal with one additional requirement. Richard's cheeks dimpled into a sheepish smile. A requirement? What? You're reneging. I quaffed the snifter's contents. There'll be none of that. Just pour another and shake on it, I urged. And not reneging, just asking a small favor, something special between friends. He curled his lip and poured a generous refill. Make sure you like this. Can you taste the Ogni Blanc? It's my best, I tell you, my very best. It's very good. I waggled my eyebrows and put the glass to my lips. Now, my favor. Ellen hasn't seen you in months. A steamy lightness penetrated my brain. Ellen! How is sweet Ellen? Please, give her my regards. She's well, but you can give them yourself this evening, when you visit. Visit, of course, I should. I'll plan for it my next trip. The aged cognac went down smoothly as I drained the second serving. Ha ha ha, your snifter's empty again. A third was poured and toasted. To our soon-to-be-settled deal. And we downed the contents. Richard's eyes sparkled as he raised his eyebrows, a wily grin contorting his mouth. My tongue was spongy, and for some unknown reason I started to laugh. Jacques, our deal. Do you agree? Richard crinkled his nose and sipped. A very enjoyable, light-headed weightlessness engulfed me. Agree to what? I giggled. Coming to Ellen's masquerade this evening and surprising her. It would be the perfect place to mingle with potential clients. Come, let's go so we can get cleaned up. Richard's plan was working. His fine cognac was subtly weakening my inhibitions. A small burp slipped from my lips. You know what? That's a fine idea. My cheeks warmed and I grinned. All right, let's go. Magnifique! Then our deal is sealed. He grabbed my hand, shook it, and with the other holding the bottle of cognac, dragged me toward his carriage. Tether your horse to the carriage, let's go, and we'll finish this on the way. A short while later, I was tugged into the midst of hundreds of guests, surrounded by bouquets and perfectly hung streamers. My throat dried, and my gimpy legs started aching. What am I doing here? Richard was waylaid by a group of guests, so I headed toward a wall and found a chair. Somehow, amid the dancing and mingling guests, Ellen spotted me. The corners of her ruby lips curled and framed a brilliant smile. Her gown shuffled gracefully across the floor. As she headed toward me, my neck warmed. Jacques, you're here! She almost yelled, planting a Labie's kiss on my cheeks and reaching for my arm. Magnifique! Come, let's dance! I was clamped and pulled into a flurry of motion and music, rustling bodices and shimmering jewels. She gracefully swung me through the crowded floor, effortlessly dodging and gliding with me in her arms, keeping immaculate time with the orchestra. I stumbled and faltered, but she simply overcame and moved me ever so easily. Within minutes I was alive, skipping and keeping time with Ellen's graceful steps. I smiled and laughed and waved at others. It had been an eternity since I'd allowed myself an entertaining evening, and now, socializing with friends while sipping fine cognac and wine, I was almost enjoying it. After a flurry of dances, we found a waiter and grabbed glasses of cool champagne. Ellen let go. Now don't go far. I have some business for you to attend to. She laughed and scurried away. I wiped my sweating forehead. That wasn't so bad, but I need to rest. I strolled around the outskirts of the dancing mob, looking for Richard, and found him involved in a discussion on investing and politics. Gentlemen, there are changes in Versailles and Paris. As usual, Louis is preoccupied with his wood and metal locks and pays no attention to his citizens. The coffers are dry, people are hungry, and his opponents are lining up. His brother continues to create turmoil. Where should I invest my profits? Questioned a short, stout fellow with a huge cravat hiding a double chin. Invest your profits in gold and bury it. At least then the Administration Generale won't find and tax it. It's becoming concerning. Richard laughed and slapped the chubby fellow on the back. Yes, and what about the Americans? They say there is much unrest, dumping tea in some Boston harbor, and George sending a most heinous set of requirements, which they call the Intolerable Acts, in response. I'm certainly not investing there. No, I interrupted. Invest in grapes. I said, stepping into the conversation and putting my arm around Richard's shoulder. I have a fine supply of some of the best Doni Blanc and Colombard you'll ever see. Buy them to make cognac for 10 to 15 sous per crate and sell the resulting cognac for livres per bottle. Like my friend Richard. A much better investment than gold. Let your investment age into fine cognac and reap the benefits in 5 to 6 years. Richard's eyes burst wide, and he threw up his hands. Now, Jacques, those are my grapes, admittedly the best in all of France, but we've already sealed that deal. He laughed and put his arm around me. The evening is young. There'll be plenty of time for business. This evening is meant for enjoyment. He pushed another snifter of cognac into my waiting hand. Our conversation was subsequently stifled by another snifter of Richard's honey-colored gold. I found another chair to relax in. The cognac's warmth penetrated the back of my tongue as I rested my cramping leg. Every sip from the crystal snifter intensified the movement and bright colors, the laughter and music. A lightness and warmth filtered into my brain, and my typical impatience with such settings evaporated. I was weightless, at ease with the world, and wanted to talk, listen, smile, and laugh. Chords from violins, cellos, a harpsichord, and flutes filled the room as I inhaled the scent of the bouquets of flowers. I scanned the guests. A slim fellow with long legs, a vociferous large man, a giggling lady, all with bright eyes, flamboyant gestures, and laughter. I scanned to my left, and the back of a slight figure caught my attention, adorned in a scarlet gown with wavy black hair flowing over her perfect shoulders. I studied her. The silhouette was striking. Its curves, its graceful walk, its fluid movement. My pulse quickened. Suddenly, she turned, tilted her Colombina mask, and looked directly at me. I glanced away as if parrying the slash of an adversary's saber. My cheeks warmed. Had she noticed? I shifted my stare to the floor and turned to look for Richard. The image of her face reappeared. Dark eyes, a perfect nose, and flushed ruby cheeks. I stayed focused on the floor. There was a familiar shuffling of skirts, and a hand touched my shoulder. Jacques, here you are. I've been looking for you. I glanced upward to see Ellen holding the arm of the figure I had just observed. Don't just sit here surveying my bar like you're guarding a redoubt. Go to the floor and dance. Ellen, I can't. The old wound. It makes me clumsy. My chest tightened and my ears warmed. Miss Geneviève Bouvier needs an escort for the evening, and you can't just sit here being useless. There will be no arguing. Ellen, I don't wish to embarrass. I insist. I sighed. Oui, if you insist. Further debate's futile. It's settled then. She placed my hand around Miss Bouvier's. The two of you dance and get to know each other. I must be off. My cheeks heated. Please excuse our hostess, mademoiselle. She's a dear friend. My heart beat as though it would explode from my body. As for me, well, I'm a foreigner to the dance floor and social pleasures. I fear I'll embarrass you. Sir, are you not the Marquis de Sade? You supported my father's regiments. He said you were a valiant and honorable officer. Her eyes smiled, and her slender fingers squeezed my hand. Oui, I am. I paused. Bouvier, you are Field Marshal Bouvier's daughter? The feel of her grasp made my skin tingle. Yes, his youngest. Before passing, he often spoke of the local officers he'd served with. He assigned you high regard. I stared at her. Her smile mesmerized me. I realized I wasn't speaking. I gasped in disbelief. He's passed? Had I known, I'd have paid my respects. He was an excellent officer. My condolences. How is the rest of your family? My mare is well, and my older sisters have all married and ensure our estate is cared for. Then I'm pleased to hear it. Merci, monsieur. Geneviève tugged my forearm loosely and headed to the dance floor. Shall we dance? No protest, no regard. I feigned a mild protest, but was truly enthralled by this new acquaintance. My face warmed as we strolled to the floor. My pulse quickened. We waltzed, galloped, and stepped to the minuet and musette. I stepped on Geneviève's toe and accidentally tripped the robust Madame Twagonot, but Geneviève's grace was more than sufficient to overcome my poorly placed steps. She was cheerful and had a wonderfully dry sense of humor. She was brilliant and beautiful, but more importantly, she made me feel comfortable. Oh, so comfortable. She'd crinkle her nose and somehow flawlessly overcome my poorly placed steps, gliding side to side or gently behind, biting my misplaced hand or arm, acting as though I perfectly twirled her in tempo to the music. Marquis, you said you were clumsy. Not so. She gracefully circled around me. Then 'tis a compliment to your grace and ability. I laughed, and she giggled, and we stepped, spun, and skated on smooth marble surface. She was simply the most stunning creature I'd ever met. The evening was enchanting, but, like all good things, it had to end. But how can it end? I want to see her again. What should I say? Mademoiselle Geneviève, I apologize for my clumsiness, but it's been a wonderful evening. Most entertaining. I don't generally dance, but it's been wonderful. Do you agree? She waggled her eyebrows and smiled. Yes, simply enchanting. I'm sorry if I sound the fool, but in any case, would you consider— Before I'd said another word, Richard grabbed my shoulder from behind me. Jacques, here you are. I've missed you, old friend. He grabbed me with a clumsy la bise. I was so glad you came. And our deal. Have we completed it? He blurted with rolling eyes and a huge smile, a bit tipsy, fully enjoying himself. Then his eyes popped. Mademoiselle Geneviève? You two know each other. How wonderful. Jacques, you've been holding out on me, haven't you? Sly fellow. My face warmed. Actually, we've just met this evening. Ellen introduced us. Well then, it's settled. We must have brunch tomorrow. I need to hear more about this fascinating surprise. He hugged me again. I must tell Ellen. We'll see you both tomorrow then. He hugged each of us and ambled away, bidding farewell to the other guests. Geneviève, my apologies. My friend oversteps his bounds. I'm afraid this has been an overwhelming evening. But I'd be most happy, if you'd be so inclined, I'd be honored to have brunch. The corner of her mouth curled. Well then, tomorrow. But I have no coach, only my horse. How— Don't worry, I'm staying here this evening. I think this may be Ellen's doing. She pecked a la bise on my cheek, smiled warmly, and stepped lightly back into the atrium. A valet brought my horse. I mounted and patted his neck, then rode to a nearby inn to rest my exhausted body. Cognac became my second home, attending dinners, dancing at balls, and mixing at galas. We strolled through gardens and took long carriage rides. Geneviève was intelligent, assertive, and complex. I was empty when we were apart. We talked and laughed for hours, and what were previously foreign and silly topics became interesting. Cupid's arrow had deeply embedded itself. We courted for 9 months. One weekend, I arranged dinner at her favorite restaurant and had the chef prepare Geneviève's favorite meal. We sipped champagne, and after dinner, the aroma of rich, nutty coffee complemented a fruity millefeuille. I directed my coachman to drive us to her favorite park, which overlooked the Charente River. I love this place. Just look at the moon, Geneviève sighed while pointing her delicate finger out the carriage window. I held her hand as she stepped from the carriage, gravel crunching below her feet. She lifted her face into the fresh air, her eyes focused on the shining orb. What a perfect evening. With her eyes focused skyward, I took a knee, my pulse quickening. Geneviève. She turned, looking for me, then glanced down. Her eyes widened, reflecting the moon's silver glow. I wrapped my fingers around her wrist. Geneviève, I stuttered. You've become my everything. Your smile melts me, and your touch renews me. Would you be my wife? Her eyes glistened. She nodded, and a tear ran down her cheek. She held out her hand, and I slipped a small gold gimel ring on her finger. She clasped my hand. I stood up, took her into my arms in a joyous embrace, and then we sealed it with a kiss. We announced our engagement to friends and family. Ellen and Richard hosted our late spring wedding at their immaculately groomed estate amid the scent and beauty of thousands of spring blossoms. We traveled to Nice to honeymoon at a small chateau in its coastal hills. We filled our days with seaside walks and carriage rides along the rocky coastlines. Our nights centered around balls, magnificent cuisine, bottles of fine wine, and each other. It was pure joy, togetherness, and passion. The honeymoon passed quickly, as did our first year together. Geneviève was 23 years of age when we married. She was the youngest of 3 sisters and her father's constant companion and favorite. Raised a bit of a tomboy, she understood much more of my tendencies than I did hers. She was an excellent hostess and extremely accommodating to friends and associates, which also made her an excellent business partner. Her gardens were immaculate and showed off her extreme organizational skills. Geneviève held strong opinions about her household. In fact, at times she was mildly domineering and demanding, but I loved her even more for her strong personality, especially her blunt, honest approach. Within the first month of our marriage, her high standards manifested themselves in my personal dress, hygiene, and orderliness. I'd lived alone for some time, and even though Nonaire had tutored me, I was a tough subject. Geneviève quickly realized she had her work cut out, but faced the challenge with zeal. Jacques, you're wearing those old riding boots, aren't you? I walked into the parlor and kissed Geneviève on the forehead. Yes, how did you know? I hate to say it, but honestly you need to get a new pair. Put gently, they're quite pungent. I frowned. What, my favorite boots? They're fine and comfortable. Why would I wish to waste good money on new boots? She clasped my jaw, eyed me, then tilted her head and smiled. Because you're cheap and don't care about others. You don't need to tell me you wear them all the time. I can smell your presence. They absolutely stink. Now please, change them and burn them. She paused, curled her beautiful lips into a smile, and returned my kiss. We agree, don't we? I stepped back, blinking. Well, I suppose. I had no idea they were that offensive. I'll take care of it. We hugged, and I went to freshen up and change for dinner. A week later, after a political junket to Versailles, I returned to our beautiful home. It was great to be back, and early the next morning I planned to relax by taking a ride on the new mare I'd just purchased. I changed into my riding frock and breeches, but couldn't find my boots. I searched my changing room, then the tack room, then the barn, but without success. "Nonere, have you seen my riding boots? You know, the ones I like." "Yes, they were in the refuse bucket for the incinerator. We burned them with the trash a few days ago." "What? My boots? You incinerated my boots? Why?" "They were in the refuse bucket, and I, for one, was so happy to see them go. Talk about a wretched odor." "But," I paused, "I didn't put them there. They were my favorites." "Well, whoever did it, thank goodness." That evening, after a dinner of Chef's excellent chicken pot pie, we were enjoying dessert, and I asked, "Geneviève, do you need anything from Angoulême? I'll be heading there tomorrow." "No," she paused and tilted her head. "Nothing I can think of. I'm well set for now. Why do you ask?" "No particular reason. I'm going to visit the cordwainer. I need a new pair of riding boots. My others seem to have been incinerated." Geneviève put her finger to her lips. Tut, new boots. Good for you, dear. You deserve them." She smiled, forked her pastry, and took a sip of tea. And so it was. I was slowly being retrained on the hygiene expected of a married marquis by the daughter of a field marshal and, I suppose, in the politics of domestic tranquility. Rumors spread about an upcoming addition to the Dessart estate. 7 months later, our son Geoffroy was born. 2.5 years later, we welcomed our second, Guillaume. Geneviève was a kind and loving mother, and the boys flourished under her constant oversight and care. Geoffroy was outgoing and nimble with quick reflexes. He also possessed a brilliant intellect and loved art and reading. He was a natural-born trickster, and although smallish in frame, he possessed a loud and contagious laugh. He was a charmer who would hold the attention of every crowd he graced with his presence. His looks took after those of Geneviève. He had full, thick black hair, dark brown eyes, and a face that modeled Michelangelo's David. Geneviève called him her imp because of his devil-may-care attitude. He did his best to get his way, but he was bossy and taunting to his brother. Guillaume was reserved. Even as a small child, he preferred the company of those he was close to. He possessed a naturally stoic countenance and was more concerned about what was going on around him than who was doing it. He loved to laugh, but often wouldn't. Guillaume was meticulous, driven, and loved accomplishing things from a list of activities he created each day. He was exceptionally smart, loved math and the sciences, and excelled in problem-solving. He was the image of my youth, with a ruddy complexion, hazel eyes, pronounced chin and cheekbones, and wavy brown hair that reflected a reddish tint in the sun. By the time Guillaume was 6, he was as tall and strong as Geoffroy. I arranged for Geoffroy to inherit my title, the Marquis de Sade, while Guillaume would hold the title of Vicomte de Sade. I made sure they understood their titles were righted by birth, but their respect needed to be earned, and to whom much was given, much was expected, and a title was only as good as the person who possessed it. Geneviève used her love of reading and languages to expand the boys' horizons. She spoke fluent German, Spanish, English, and Italian, and taught them to our sons. She began their language journey very early, introducing one language and then another. By the age of 6, they possessed a grasp of each, and by the age of 8, they were being educated by native speakers, carrying on fluent conversations using proper syntax and dialect. I'd ridden my entire life and had been an exceptional horseman. After my injury, I committed to regaining that expertise and worked tirelessly with the best equestrian trainers and experts to achieve it. When the boys reached the age of 5, each received a gray camargue. In turn, they were responsible for their horses' welfare and condition. They loved their horses, racing, jumping, and hunting with them. At times, if they were concerned about their health or well-being, they even slept with them to ensure their care. Like any father, I was concerned for our family's future. I personally was a loyalist, a subject of King Louis. He was a weak monarch who came by it honestly. His grandfather and ministers had been warmongers, wasting fine French soldiers and spending obsessively on the instruments of war while their subjects starved. Louis's grandfather, the 15th, had shut himself away in Versailles and trained his grandson to be an isolationist. When Louis's father and older brother died, he was forced into a position he didn't want and wasn't ready for. He was practical and wished to rule well but was weak, easily led, and never accomplished suitable reform. France's citizens continued to starve. The writings of Voltaire and Rousseau were molding new ideas and politics in the Second Estate, whose opposition was growing noticeably, ripe with open dissension due to Louis's weakness. Though I cared little for him, I supported his God-given authority and believed stability was a better environment for change than revolution. France had been unified under a monarchy for over 900 years, which led to hundreds of years of growth and improvement. Change was always to be accepted, but revolutions and insurrections brought instability and risk. Therefore, I offered personal and financial support to develop an approach to convince our monarch to change our government to a constitutional monarchy. Other extremists had proposed constitutions that isolated the monarch and subverted his authority. Some would even have deposed him, proposals that would have created chaos and taken the citizens of France's liberty away. Unfortunately, the growing unrest and the monarchy's negligence began to be cause for concern.